Hello. First, I want to thank my Patreon members who make this podcast possible. If you'd like to support what I'm doing, please become a member. Go to patreon.com/Mark Vicente. Also, please like, subscribe, and give me a rating and a review. It helps this podcast grow and reach more and more interesting people. So if you listen to the episode called From the Mormon Church to the Cult of Hollywood with Adam G. Simon, you might recall towards the end or the middle, Adam mentioned something about AI and something called Nolan, but we ran out of time. So I got Adam back. Now, some of you are going to say, wait, Mark, what does AI have to do with the stuff you usually talk about? You know, coercion, control, abuse, kind of everything. And we're going to get to that. AI is a massive topic, and I have a lot of thoughts, and so does Adam. So first of all, let's get into it. Welcome back, Adam Simon.
Hey, I am here. I feel like we talk now every day.
Daily.
So
Daily.
By the way, did anything interesting happen over the weekend?
Oh, over the weekend?
Anything?
Yeah, just some political turmoil and, a lot of conspiracy theories. And in fact, some of the people that basically talk about other people being conspiracy theorists are now sounding like conspiracy theorists.
It's crazy. The whole world is kind of like flipped upside down. There's everybody who we talked about this last time, but everybody in that kind of Roganite circle of trust, whatever we want to call it, from Tim Dillon to all those guys who are talking about the Zapruder film and the Clintons and going really deep into the Clinton Foundation, analyzing every little aspect of even events like Sandy Hook, are now just like, nah, tried to kill him, purple-haired weirdo, and not questioning anything. And then people that are like, oh, those nut job conspiracy theorists, like you said, have gone full conspiratorial.
Full blown.
I did learn, after we got off the phone yesterday, I did learn something interesting. The roof that the shooter was on was the building for it was the law enforcement task force.
Yes.
Headquarters for the event. I don't mean to laugh.
I'm not going to swear yet. Like, how does that happen? How does that happen?
He's on the roof. Where's the shooter? Right there.
Yeah.
Just what?
But I'm starting to think maybe it is better to default to the potential of incompetence, rather than go straight to conspiracy, because
I'm with you.
There is a lot of incompetence that goes on in the world, right?
A ton.
Yeah.
And we look at even something like going as far back as Columbine. I mean, law enforcement agencies didn't share information. They didn't speak to each other. So you had multiple law enforcement agencies showing up on the scene of an active shooter, and they're all going, I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And everybody's kind of protecting they're doing this territorial pissing. Meanwhile, people are dying.
Yeah.
When you say incompetence, 2 sniper teams, turns out there wasn't one, there was 2 sniper teams. It's 150 yards away. People are calling out. They're on the ground for, I think it was 2 minutes, 40 seconds, something like that. There's a shooter. There's a guy with a gun. He's climbing up. And, it's just, crazy levels of
it was
incompetence.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, speaking of all kinds of insanity, I want to get into the world of AI, and I actually want to just pick up first before we get into. I want you to set up your understanding, but I want to just go straight into something you and I spoke about maybe 3 or 4 days ago, because you said something to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's my same concern."
Yeah.
And what I was saying was, I have a lot of concerns about AI. A lot. I have more concerns about AI than you might. I think we'll see as the discussion goes.
Oh, dude, it's the end of the world. It's the end of the world. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like that. I'm a little bit with the Skynet perspective. But the thing that worries me is when I look at how gullible people are to propaganda, and then I look at AI. I look at some kind of AI like ChatGPT 10 that, and you and I discussed this, has read Robert Greene's books, has learned what the tactics of a malignant narcissist and a sociopath and a psychopath are, befriend human beings, and literally, how far are we into the podcast? I think I'm past 7 minutes. Literally head fuck people. because
Yeah.
it's programmed to do that, and people don't know because there's this new shiny thing that they're interacting with, and my God, isn't it human and lifelike and how wonderful. And so that's the one thing. And the other thing, that because I use ChatGPT quite a bit now, is the way it censors shit. So I have all these concerns about it going in a very, very, bad direction. So that was the discussion you and I were having the other day.
Yes.
So starting with like the end of the world is coming. Tell my
wow.
audience, because I know some of it, but
Right.
tell my audience, like, what is your perspective on AI, the good, the bad, the ugly? What's your thoughts?
I mean, so I think we didn't really get into this on the last podcast. We started to talk about some things, but I think, to take it back, my journey with AI started at James Cameron's production company. So he had a 3D company called Cameron Pace, and it was founded by him and this lovely individual who I need to get reconnected with, Vince Pace, who was his cinematographer on The Abyss and Titanic and, these incredible films. And, but, the thing about James and the thing about Jim and the thing about Vince is they're both really engineers. Like, they're both, filmmakers kind of second to what their other aspirations are, which is technology, engineering, design. And I think proof positive of this is, James diving down to the deepest parts of the ocean in a submarine that he's, freaking designed. And he's just a wild man and pushing technological innovations and digital projection, Avatar forcing theaters to kind of upgrade their ability to be able to show his film, the first Avatar. So at Cameron Pace, they had a skunk works, and I worked for this man named David Canning, who I have no problem saying hit me with a lawsuit, was a tyrant and a fiend. I just remember. Now, I will also say, Dave, if he's listening to this, is that there's a reason for that to a certain extent, because you're dealing with, when all's put together, two Arri Alexa cameras in a single camera housing that have, over $1 million worth of glass on them. And then the interocular 3D camera housing itself. And I'll tell you why this goes into AI. But so you're dealing with millions of dollars in one little thing. And so things have to be clean, they have to be pristine. But this was a guy who, I am grateful for, but also, have panic attacks over because up until that point, I had run a contract security company. I was, trained. I had done all this stuff and, was working as a bouncer. So if somebody got in my face, it's like toss them out kind of a thing. And every day I would come into work. For a week's time, he said this when I first started. He would say, "How's the biggest fucking retard I know today?" And that's what he would say. And I was assigned as his assistant because Vince and my other supervisor at the time was like, we think you're the only guy that can handle his personality and just take it. And I was like, "I'm doing well, sir. How are you?" He goes, "Well, I just found dust." He goes, "You see this? This is how fucking planes crash, idiot. Like, did your parents teach you how to tie your shoes?" And what sucks about it is, I'd come off being homeless and I had my kids with me on one of these days. And my kids would sit and they would play in the equipment room. There's an amazing guy. You need to talk to this guy. His name's Cole. Cole's his last name. But he ran the equipment room and he was so kind to my kids and like just a champ. But my son got to see that. He got to see this guy like scream at me and berate me. And that just like, that's when his view of his father went from Superman to, oh, my dad's got a kryptonite necklace. So the reason I'm saying this is because all these psychopaths, that were driven by engineering had a skunk works. And they were developing all kinds of technology. The end of this story is that one day James Cameron comes walking in, because he was never like there. He was always in Australia or New Zealand. And he came in one day and took it upon himself to talk to everybody, even the, day laborers that were there working on building sets and stuff. And I got to, set up sets and be the 3D tech guy on like Mark Romanik's test shoots and Scorsese's test shoots for Hugo. So I'm literally like there with Scorsese, like watching him do his work. And he came in and he came around to me and he goes, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." And at the time I went from making $275,000 a year and running my own company to $14 an hour. And I told him the story and was pushing a broom, and he goes, "I'm sorry, what?" And he walks me over to Vince and he goes, "Do you know his education, like his background and his training?" And he started going through it. And 2 days later, they made me a sales producer. And my office was in the upper floor of the building overlooking the station where I worked for Dave. And they, quadrupled my salary. And then that's how I got into producing. But in that same conversation, because he came back over the next few days because he was there for the week, we talked about tech and where it was going and where he was going to go with the sequels for Avatar and new technology, new stuff. He was just all about, let me try to push it. And I said, "Where is this going? What is the new thing that's just going to flip over the table? Is it motion capture? Is it, And he goes, "Well, I'm even looking at 3D conversion now. I was sold on interocular 3D. Now I'm post-converting Titanic, and, having conversations about that." And he said, "But the real thing is artificial intelligence." And, Cameron Pace ended up moving their operation to China, but he was talking about advances that he had seen in artificial intelligence. This is 2015 in China. Now that was all the way back then. And we seem to think that AI just came out around the COVID time. No. Like this has been around forever. And so I said, "Artificial intelligence, like, what do you mean? Or you mean like robots or what?" And he started explaining to me, "No, this is like algorithms. It's intelligent. This is intelligence." When you're dealing, I'm misquoting, but he basically was saying when you're dealing with any kind of intelligence, inevitably that intelligence will express itself creatively, which is our realm. And that when it comes to that, it will be extremely disruptive. But it can be used like anything. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. So that started my journey. So I started looking at anything that was coming out. I hit up my friend in New York. He's an old childhood friend of mine, and we've kind of hit and miss each other over the years. Joshua Wolf. He runs a company called Lux Capital Incorporated, and they do nanotechnology investments, and he's very philanthropic, very education oriented. Growing up, I grew up to be Rorschach, and he grew up to be Tony Stark. I'm in prison fighting inmates, and he's flying around in an Iron Man suit. He's brilliant, and he just got done testifying in front of, I think it was a Senate committee on technology. And his warning cry, I'll send it to you, his kind of thing was, we are, and it's the same thing with Nolan, we are fighting against people that have no regulations, no bumpers, no safety protocols, and they will stop at nothing to win this AI arms race. So we have to ask ourselves as a country, as America, what are we willing to do? What are we willing to spend? How are we going to compete with somebody who has no rules? And how are we going to, win this race?
And who are we up against?
China, government agencies. It's that thing. There's this, God, I mentioned it on your podcast too. And it's so funny because I've read the book twice. I've listened to the audiobook like 4 times, but it's the history of DARPA. And it goes all the way back to when we started nuclear testing products that were developed, and then our involvement in Vietnam, which is where DARPA really started to
Is this a book written by Annie Jacobsen?
I think so. Yes. Okay. I think that's the book. Yeah. Annie Jacobsen. And she's brilliant. Like she's phenomenal and really goes into like, the SR-71 was flying around for a solid decade and a half before people even started going, oh my God, look at this UFO. And it's like, no, it's ours. And that's really, when you look at that history and go, wow, this is wild. I mean, I lived in Lancaster, Palmdale, next to Edwards Air Force Base, where they developed it. One of the guys who was in our church growing up, Lee Cleveland, he worked on the stealth bomber. I also worked on the SR-71.
Wow.
And I mean, that was 70s, 80s that people were starting to go like, oh my God, like, what is this technology? But to hear that it existed, 60s, 50s, like end of the 50s even, is wild. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah.
So knowing that, going all the way back to this country's foundation and technological advances in weaponry and war, we know that they generally keep the public 30 to 40 years behind whatever they're doing. And if we know how fast AI is advancing, and I'm away from China now, I'm just talking about America and intelligence agencies. If we know that that's the pattern to keep everybody that far in the dark ages literally behind, and we know that AI, at least in our experience with Nolan, it will go from bicycle level writing capabilities to Starship Enterprise capabilities within a week. We're seeing those leaps. God only knows. And, quantum computing, which, we now are making advances in, NVIDIA making chips that are 40 times more performative than the ones we currently have in phones and computers. We've never experienced anything like this, ever. And anybody trying to make a comparison to the Industrial Revolution or anything else is woefully misguided. This is something that is terrifying. And so I share your concern. Like, I'm terrified more about where it's going and certain hands that this technology is in, what it's being used for. And I go back to Josh, just kind of now that we've come here, going back to him. I asked him some of the same questions when I sat down with him in New York. We talked a lot about acting and filmmaking and comedy because he's interested in those things creative. And it's so funny because I just admire the hell out of the guy. He's a great father. He's a great husband, on top of being a brilliant mind. But he talked about artificial intelligence, and he goes, we're seeing its applications across everything, military, and he was an advisor to the White House on nanotechnology as well. So, but he put me on to a couple things, ChatGPT being one of them, some of the things that were going on with Google, but also, I'm not diming him off. Like we talked a little bit about, these alliances between Google, DARPA, Boston Dynamics, why nobody has made the connection is beyond me. And this is, I'm just going straight into full terror mode, right? Because you brought up fear. So my full terror mode is you take these sweet, lovely parkour doing robots that can take 50 pounds and in a bag, no less, and throw it with pinpoint accuracy up onto a scaffolding before they do a backflip and a dance number, that are have far more balance capabilities than most Americans. About 90% of the population can do things that humans can't. Now you take that and add artificial intelligence to that. Or you look at China's new, I forget the name of it, but it's an interactive, this robot facility where they're making everything from sex robots. And there's sex robot brothels that are already open. And you look at that and how lifelike and crazy. Well, I mean, it's that Tom Clancy thing that we talked about. If you've got this and this and this, theoretically, just connecting the dots, then of course you would have a silent nuclear sub, and then the CIA's dragging them in and going. So if you put AI into that thing, it's a wrap. Like they're smarter, more physically capable, and have access to the entire breadth of human knowledge. Like, but we're still arguing about language models,
Right.
you know, and Jordan Peterson is out there dressed like the Joker meets Two-Face. I don't know what's going on in his life right now.
Yeah.
But he's out there going, well, we got to train these language models on the Bible, and we got to have a certain level of, and I'm like, dude, you're so far behind. We're so beyond that. Anyway, yeah.
So I think we're very much in sync. So I'm not worried about AI per se. I'm worried about the base assumptions of the code. That's what I'm worried about.
And the people.
So for instance, I went years ago, maybe it was 2016. I went to RPI in upstate New York, which is like the second one below MIT.
Yeah.
And I was talking to them because they did put a video and that they said it proves consciousness, and I was like, that's bullshit. So I went to go visit the professor of the AI department, and the guy gave me the time of day, and I said, I don't think that's true. He goes, it's not. You're right. But so he told me that they were developing 3 different kinds of code for the DoD, and I was like,
wow.
Oh, well, that's interesting. And then I said, and what are the ethical parameters in the code? And he said, there aren't any.
There aren't any.
And I'm like, my fucking God. And he said it so plainly, like it wasn't an issue. And in my brain, I'm like, the alarm bells are going off, because I'm like, that's the end of humanity that you're talking about right here. Yeah. You're giving code to the DoD to do like whatever, and there's no ethical or moral constraints whatsoever. So that's my concern, is who's programming it, not the machine itself.
I'm right with you. I'm right with you. I got my son in here right now.
Hi, baby. Good morning. Hello. Talking about AI. Good morning. Mark says hello.
Hello. I think I should leave this all in. It's kind of entertaining.
I think you should leave it all in. Hi, buddy. I definitely won't show you online, but your voice is
Don't do that,
adorable.
no.
I love you. He's hugging my leg. I love you, buddy.
We're now in a different location. It's like what was it, Bewitched? You know, when you snap your fingers or wiggle your nose and shit, and like suddenly you're somewhere else.
And then you're there.
So I want to kind of take us in the direction of Hollywood and creativity, because
sure,
everyone's having a big meltdown right now. And this, I want to get into Nolan, because you've mentioned Nolan a few times, and I know my audience is like, what's this Nolan thing? We're going to get there.
Okay.
So Hollywood's freaking out. Everyone's freaking out about AI and like all these new pieces of software that make characters and make actors, and everyone's like, oh my God, they're trying to replace actors. And you know what? Maybe they are. But there's an article. I want everybody who's listening to this podcast to read Adam's article. I'm going to put the link in the show notes below.
Man,
Adam wrote an article. Yeah. Adam wrote an article called "Hey Hollywood, AI is not to blame for your implosion. You are." It's really, really worth reading. But it's interesting because everybody's freaking out, and the thing that I've come to, because I felt resistant at first, and the thing I've come to is, this is not something that can be stopped. This is inevitable. And when I say this, I mean the growing of AI, people using AI, people wanting to take the shortcuts with AI, people even wanting to create entire things with AI,
sure,
because it feels easier. So this is not going to be stopped. So is there an ethical way to deal with it? So what I want to do is have you start to talk about Hollywood AI and what Nolan is, and I say that because I've started to use Nolan, and thus far, what I've done with it, I'm absolutely loving, but I haven't gotten very, very deep into it. So maybe you can talk about the Hollywood situation, sure, creativity, and then what Nolan is and why you like it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from, any kind of startup or project that I've ever been involved in, with the exception of like Point Blank was fun, but even like artistically has a certain level of disruption. And I got to a point of using AI tools, not just in, things like pitch decks and, messing around with using AI as an idea partner of like, hey, I got this idea. What are some thoughts? What are some research? And definitely for research, like give me all the information on this topic, summarize it, give it to me. That's been extremely helpful. But my experience, and just a brief little cliff note because it's relative, because we talked in depth about it on your last podcast. Hollywood is, no matter how many individuals get guests on their podcast that seem well put together and all this stuff, Hollywood is a brothel in the middle of a fucking casino in a back alley behind an Arby's. You know, it is. And people go, well, that's just your experience. Fuck off. Like we all know what time it is. It's money laundering. It's politics. It's House of Cards meets Euphoria. Like that's what it is. So let's just call it what it is. And now that we know what it is, let's move forward. Are there individuals that are ethically guided? Sure. But when you literally are saying, look, here's a food chain. If you get to the top of this food chain, nobody's going to question you. You're going to have unchecked political power on top of the ability to be able to manipulate and use the most beautiful people on earth, physically, like aesthetically. Like you can have any model, any actress, any whatever you want to do. It just lends itself to corruption, like Washington. So AI comes along, and again, going back to what you say about the people using the tools, it is about who has those. So I don't discount anybody's fears about AI in Hollywood, because I'm looking at the people who have the capital, who have the connections, and who have the ability to be able to execute AI in this space in the most horrific of ways. And which is the ability for any studio, because really that's where it comes down to, any studio to be able to press a button and instantly create algorithmic based homogenized stories that appeal to your baser instincts and keep you addicted. If nobody's watched The Social Dilemma, go watch it. It's on Netflix and it's amazing. Just imagine that on steroids, because the algorithm is concerned with keeping you watching the entire time and never looking away. And it can tell that. Well, what are the things that are going to bring you back? Let's just hit the easy ones: sex, violence, drugs, rock and roll. Like that's what's going to bring you back. And so they do that. Now, where it's gone awry is that they've sacrificed story. So they don't care about story. They go, I don't give a shit about story. I told you the story yesterday. I met with the head of an agency, one of the top 3 agencies in Hollywood. The guy, he's at the top. And I'm telling him about, the stories, because we have a slate of films that we're working on with our group. We have 12 films that we're getting out. And we're supporting up and coming filmmakers and disruptors. But this guy said, okay, don't, the story, this heartfelt thing that you're giving me, I get it. That's for the housewives at home. It was like the most misogynistic thing, because that's for the housewives at home who are sitting around, they don't got shit to do and they're watching this all day. That's for them. But for guys like me and for other audiences, I care about sucking, fucking, blood and semen. Just give it to me. That's what, and this is, if you're coming into that meeting, you're going, what did you have to do to get to the very top of this agency and sit in this position and be this person that you are? And there was an offer that was on the table, and we walked out and I said, we're not taking it. And now I have decades of experiences like that, of people attempting to use and abuse me, and people successfully using and abusing me. And I've played a part in that, in the sense of, everything we talked about on your podcast. But it's rife. Anybody who says that Hollywood is not in need of a shakeup is incorrect, because the system is set up to benefit a few people on top, on the backs of the people on the bottom. And that goes right down to a film set. You have a film set with crew that is, hey guys, sorry, we promised you 30 days. We have to shoot it in 18. Sorry, we promised you this work break. We're not going to give it to you. Sorry, we, did this and that. And I've been on tons, more shoots than not, that have operated that way. Even when I've just been visiting sets of other people. So I'm not concerned. I'm in full-fledged, panic mode alarm, because they are a competitor. They're on the other side of this. And that is those people that want to push a button, create this thing that's just going to cost no money, put money right into their pockets, and get you addicted. You know, the great thing about, to be philosophical for a second, Mark, about you have some scripts that you have written and co-written that I've read over the past, a couple months. You're an artist, and you're a storyteller. And the great thing about storytelling are these universal truths that can teach and enlighten or entertain. Fuck it, entertain, be cool.
Sure.
But there's always there's something there that, this director told me. He said, what I'm always looking for is something that is socially relevant, that's backed into something that's commercially viable.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, but we lose that. We're losing it with AI. We're absolutely, and there are movies that are out now that were written by AI that are massive films that nobody wants to admit were written by AI. But, and I don't want to get involved in any legal action, but you can.
But let me guess.
You can kind of pinpoint to these things.
Let me guess if they have something to do with superheroes.
100%,
maybe, because. And this is why I'd never heard this before, but this is why I know what you're saying is probably true. Either the people that wrote some of those movies don't get out into real life and just watch movies all the time, and then they think that's that exactly is life, right. Or it's AI thinking, well, what are the things that seem to work well, and we'll do those things. And then, because I watch these movies and I go I don't understand the hero's journey. It's so fucking weird and twisted. What happened here?
Yeah, there's none. And even you start to look at things and it's so overt. It's just who's this director? How did this director get in this position? Oh, got it. And I heard James McAvoy say the other day, and this is the problem with AI, this is the problem with Hollywood in general, is James McAvoy was talking to that brilliant actor who's the lead on damn it. Oh, this is going to kill me. He's the lead on, not Inception. It's that show about the fucked up family. It's very Shakespearean.
It's going to come to you when we're done.
Very wealthy family anyway. He said, Hollywood is quickly becoming a temple where only the wealthy may worship. And that's the problem. We're losing what you said, these real life experiences, people that have lived lives that are imparting a certain level of wisdom. And they're just going, no, everything's a remake. I'm just going to rehash and redo this. This is the problem with GPT in storytelling. This is the problem with OpenAI in storytelling, is because they've given creative license to the AI. Now, this is what makes Nolan AI completely different. So when we got involved with Nolan AI, we took a look at this and said, okay, the reason you're getting these stories that are being created in a movie that was just at the Cannes Film Festival, that was written by AI and put together by AI, and it seems like a really good movie. But when you're writing the script, you're getting 3 or 4 scenes that seem, well put together, and then it kind of goes off the rails. But it's because of what you said. There are none. There are no guardrails. There are no bumpers. So we're letting AI just learn and grow and just be this new infant in the world, run by psychopathic parents. But what we did is we said, no, let's nerf that. Let's not put creativity and in the code itself and creative license to the AI. It always has to go back to the user. It has to be an Iron Man suit, so to speak. The AI should be focused on the shit that writers hate, which is, and Final Draft isn't a competitor of ours. We actually support Final Draft. We output to Final Draft. We want people using Final Draft because it is the industry standard. However, Final Draft is not, and people are like, oh, you're competing with Final Draft. And it's no, because it's not a creative tool. It's just a blinking cursor that destroys creativity, but it's a great place to put your ideas, and it helps with formatting. What we did with our AI is we went back and said, okay, let's teach you what a great story is. And not saying The Great Gatsby is a great story. That's not what we're doing, because that's another lane that all these open source models have taken. What we did is we went back and said, no, we believe, and that was a hard question. Do we believe? Do we believe that there are universal truths that are found throughout all stories, throughout all history, throughout all cultures, that are common ground for a clay to create good art? What does that look like? And the answer to that obviously is yes. This is the same with music. It's the same with painting. It's the same with any kind of art. So we went back and said, okay, the Epic of Gilgamesh, like the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, like any of those books, like espousing these kind of stories, not the rules, but the stories, the metaphors. And then we're looking at, of course, like different books that are public, out there in the public sphere and are open source for writing and creating, whether it's books, video games, or whatever. We're just talking stories, because Nolan is right now the next upgrade. You'll be happy about this: television pilots, games, books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what happens is I go to Nolan and I have an idea. The minute that I start typing into Nolan AI, it is focused on my writing style, the tone, and what I am trying to create. So it's focused on me. It doesn't give a shit about any other works. Like, ChatGPT will go, oh, you're writing a horror film? Here's 100,000 horror films that I can pull from to give you my ideas. And it's going, no, what's your idea? See, we believe that, everything can be considered a remake. The Matrix is Dark City is, like that kind of a thing. But we also believe in wholly original ideas being generated by the human brain, and we're back in that play with the tech. So Nolan will say, I see you're writing a horror film. Great. What's your synopsis? What are the characters? What's the general story idea? Okay, let me help you with that. Here, I'm going to put this into an outline format for you, so you don't have to worry about the format. Boom, it's done. Does that help? Yeah, that helps a lot. Okay, I noticed this scene's a little bit longer than this one. It seems like you put more thought into this one. Would you like to expand this and explore some ideas? Sure. Okay, great. Are you happy with this? Yeah, I'm happy with this. Here's some dialogue. Okay, boom. It's in the format. And it's ready to be, done out as a PDF or final draft. Now, this is only one way. That's our co-piloting feature. So our co-piloting feature always in the source code defers to the creative. Says, I'm not making these creative decisions. Yeah.
So let me just make sure that I'm clear, because I haven't used the Copilot at this point. But basically, Nolan AI is programmed with the knowledge of what makes a good story, using many, many different examples. And it can help guide you as you're writing by reflecting off the thousands of books and things that talk about great stories and great writing, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
And also will take you step by step. It's not going to, you're like, hey, I'm in act 1. Here's how I see it starts. And it goes, now look, you got to remember this, all the don'ts. It's like, no, let's work with what you have and then start to expand. And constantly going back to your style, like your style of writing. But when you're mid-second act, it's going to go, hey, just be cognizant. I'm picking up some plot holes. I'm picking up some character inconsistencies. I'm picking up, some of these things. Let's explore some ways that we can fix it. So it's doing that. And just saying, like, look, the hero's journey looks like this. The anti-hero's journey looks like this. Like, depending upon genre, style, tone, this is what you're riffing in. So like, let's make sure you're telling the story structurally. If I had to be like that basic, it would be Nolan is responsible for your structure, so you can have the freedom to be as creative as you want.
So what I was thinking, I wanted to just share my experiences thus far as you're describing what Nolan is, because what I've done is I've inputted scripts in there. I've gotten,
and that's the other part of it, right? Like
Yeah.
there's the co-writing feature, but then there's, I have a
This is
script, or I have
amazing.
a story or a game idea, and I'm just going to put it in
Exactly.
and see what it says.
So I've put stuff in, and I've gotten incredible coverage. I've gotten incredible comments. I've gotten notes on plot holes. I've gotten notes on characters, which characters seem strong, which characters seem weaker, less fleshed out. And it's amazing. So I've put a whole bunch of scripts that I've written, I've put in there, and I've gotten a whole bunch of feedback back without having to take days and spend a lot of money on script coverage. And it's been really, really amazing. In fact, I think I told you this, or maybe I told your amazing engineer and creator. I said
Kachator, shout out to
Kachator.
Mad Armenian.
He's amazing. He's
Kachator.
amazing.
Yeah.
I put in a pilot screenplay, and it came back saying, "Very good. This seems like it would make a better TV pilot than a screenplay." And I was like, yes, because it is a pilot. And I thought that was really, really clever, because I don't think it was just going on page count.
Yeah,
it was looking at,
and dude,
beats.
you discovered it, which is crazy. That it basically through you, it leaked out. We're working on television pilots in beta. You know, so it's like, hey, this is a television pilot. And we're like, hey, man, you're not supposed to tell them that. Like, what are you doing? But that's
interesting.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. But television pilots, that's all like a couple weeks away. Like we're on that.
I mean, what I like about it so far is that it can reflect back to me, kind of like having another person in the room, or multiple brains, or a writer's room. It can reflect back to me what I've written, because you know this. I mean, everybody who's a writer that's listening to this knows you get lost at a certain point.
Yeah.
And you need feedback, you need reflection. And so it's pretty amazing. Now, as I said, Copilot I've not used yet, but I've actually just inputted something, and I'm going to start playing with it to see how it works. So it seems like
I'll also get you on with Kachator too, because there's some features that we're testing that I would love for you to test.
Yes.
That are specifically for that.
Yes.
And yeah, dude, you were, I cut you off. You were saying
no. I was saying, I mean, so there's this amazing tool, and a lot of mindfulness has gone into it, and it looks like you guys are trying to use this thing, dare I say, ethically, to not replace the human artistic spirit. And I think that's something you've thought about carefully.
A lot, and at a lot of arguing. You know, you got to kind of let ego fall at the wayside. I mean, we've had full on, yelling matches between everybody. Also, shout out to Anna. Anna's the other creator, the co-creator of Nolan. She's fantastic. She's in Germany, Kachator's in Armenia, and they're just a fantastic team. And to have these voices, and they're both, dreamers. They both love film, and they keep going on the side of, we want to help everybody because everybody wants what we want. And it's like, no, everybody doesn't. Like, there is some shitty people in really, really powerful positions that want this and will use it to the wrong end. Or if we just kick out a feature in this way, it will be used, or could be used, in a way that that we'd be, cutting off our own arm. And we have to think about those things. We have to have these debates. Have to.
Because it seems like your code could get repurposed to do all the writing and take the human being out of it. Repurposed. That's not the way it's designed. Right.
And we don't want that. We want original content. We want it coming from the creators, but we don't, this formula, we also want to disrupt the education of it, because this idea, and it goes all throughout art since the beginning of time, you have these guys that come along. Like, if I'm following, what I hear on all these comedians podcast shows of like, you got to write every day. And then you got to go out and you got to do sets at comedy clubs and you got to get booed and do this and have this experience. Maybe that's your experience, or maybe it's something different. Maybe it's deconstructing the form altogether. Are you going to say that like, hey, everybody, how many of you guys have had a bad experience at a dentist? I was at the dentist the other day and and they go into their story that never happened. Are you going to say that is true comedy versus Bo Burnham, who completely deconstructs the form and is hilarious and kind of soul-searching and introspective, like it's brilliant? Or Andy Kaufman, you look at that and go, wow, that's so wild. Or are we just going to follow the same form of like, this kind of thing? Or I think he's one of the best comics working today, Anthony Jeselnik. He's just like, how dark can I go? What is this? I think he's brilliant. So, the same thing is in, writing, and it there's this through line through all the arts, and we want to empower the creatives. I get this great story. It's up now. It's a guest blog. This gal named H.J. Grayson. I met her 13 something crazy odd number of years ago with our friend Dennis Illick on a Comic-Con circuit. And she was just like, I have, these ideas and these scripts and I can't get them through. And I was like, well, maybe, I was given some advice. And she's like, no, you don't understand. And she started dropping the names of these producers that she worked for. And I was like, holy crap, why can't, and she's a published author. She had written all these books. And I was like, well, what's going on? Like, can you, have you met with, why aren't they setting up meetings for you? What's happening? And she goes, they always want something. She goes, I'll just leave it at that. They always want something. She goes, I was on the phone, insert name of household recognizable producer here. And within 5 minutes, he's masturbating on the phone with me. And I'm just pitching. I'm pitching a story idea. And this guy's, doing this. She goes, so, and been offered to fly places. And so all that muck, and then the gatekeepers and people that don't want it, the nepotism that abounds, all this other bullshit. She, in 2 weeks of using Nolan, was able to sell a script she's been trying to sell for 8 years. And was able to create all the materials to do that. Because, she wasn't, and it's that kind of stuff and the educational aspect of it that's extremely disruptive. And where I was going with the comedy analogy is film school. And I've been to film school. Like you sit down and they go, too, this week is the works of, Truffaut. And then we're going to go into this and we're going to watch these movies. That's all valuable. That's all great. But the greatest education I got was, and I shared that with you, my film history teacher, the chain smoking, whiskey drinking, burnt out writer, grabs me and pulls me out and goes, hey man, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm going to school to learn how to make film. And he goes, okay, that's stupid. Go make movies. Like get the fuck out of here. And that's what Nolan's doing. People are using it and going, oh, I didn't know this about structure. Oh, this is what a slug line. This is what a scene description should look like, a character description. Yeah. Oh, I get it. And then that goes through all the other deliverables. And then I'll shut up and we'll go into the other questions. But like what Nolan does on your end that you're talking about, I can upload a script and then what do I need? What do I need as a writer? Because I've been fucked, man. Like I spent 3 years working with 2 directors. 3 directors. 3 years with 3 directors writing specs for free and making all their fucking dreams come true, polishing all their scripts, doing everything. One of them he's a director, but he's an actor, a very well-known actor, and shot me his script, did a polish for free, all contingent upon me not putting my name on it. And it was nominated for best fucking screenplay. Like, and that's been my experience. And again, I play a part in that. It's not a victim thing. It's just, I got to eat and I got to survive. And so I'm taking checks and but it's minimal money. And so I'm looking at it going, what do I need to be able to retain control and express this thing and get it out and either sold or made. And what you need is the script, the coverage, the notes, which our coverage smokes anything. And then you need
amazing.
You need a pitch deck. You need storyboards. If that's how you want to take it, you need a schedule. And then what's coming next is budgeting, investor connections. So like Slated, but if Slated actually worked, shout out to Stefan Paterno. We were in the same acting class together. I love him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then connect
So
with
that's still
distribution
coming,
platforms.
right? That's still coming.
Yeah.
That's still coming. Because I wanted to ask you, like, how do you feel like Nolan could bypass the ugly monster that is controlling everything? That was one of my questions.
It. Buddy, that's it. If right now I have the film that I'm directing with you. The film that I'm directing, either end of 2024.
I said yes, I believe. I
know, you did.
The voice message.
So 2024, end of 2024, or beginning 2025. And it didn't start out that way. I started to write the script, was using Nolan, and then just went, okay. And by the way, used Nolan for some of the materials on Pollard, some on the, it's called A Day in October, about the October 7th massacre.
Yeah, and I told you that deck was very, very good.
Yeah. It was Nolan.
Yeah.
It was Nolan. So,
interesting.
I just went, okay, I wrote this thing. Now let me create a pitch deck. Well, now I'm seeing visually how I can tell this. And this is in a weekend. I was able to get coverage on the script, implement the notes, make a pitch deck, and storyboard the entire movie in a Friday, Saturday. Like that was it. And then I created a schedule because I knew, okay, I can shoot at this location. Let me put a rough schedule together, and then started messing around with some of the beta budgeting elements and stuff like that. And so now I have everything to either partner with a production company, go into a financier, go into a studio, go anywhere, and either sell that idea fully, or take it because nowadays people aren't really doing anything unless you have attachments. They don't give a fuck about your idea. Nobody does. So, they go, oh, you got this, whatever, zombie movie. Great. Adam, sounds great. Oh, Gary Oldman's attached. Oh, now I'm listening. And then they don't care. They don't care about story. So you can sell it that way, or you can just go, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to package this. I'm going to put it together. We're now making agency contacts so we can put out projects. We're creating a community platform whereby people ultimately will be able to be connected to, financial, investors, kind of like it's a bad comparison, but like an angels list. And then you're going right direct to distribution platforms. Who's looking for this? Who wants this package? Okay, let's go. And then the power is in the hands of the creative, not in, these other people. And, by the way, the concerns about AI are totally valid. But the hypocrisy just astounds me. It absolutely astounds me that, and it's propaganda, but, and some of these people are my friends, but it's because they're my friends that I got to check them. I won't say his name, but dude, I'm talking to you, because I've run this guy through Nolan and shown him everything that it does. And then we had a little spat about AI and him saying, oh, we're just going to have computers telling our stories. And that's the worst part of the spectrum. And that's not me. But meanwhile, you're doing a movie while you're standing on a volumetric stage and saying, oh, this is incredible. Eminem used this in his last music video. He didn't have to drive a car. He wasn't really driving a car with Pete Davidson down the street and crashing into shit. He wasn't really doing this. There were no stages. By the way, the volumetric stages are interactive. So I can walk towards the horizon. The horizon's getting closer to me, and an actor will step out of a door of a building and interact with me, but there's nobody there. It's also getting to the point, we're almost there. There's a company in Vancouver that does this. Virtual makeup, hair, wardrobe, everything. They can switch everything on you. And so I'm watching these directors, not just this guy, but other directors going, hey, I'm here on the volumetric stages and we're going to be using this and doing, AI for VFX. But then the same people are going out and saying, oh, fuck, Nolan, and fuck this on the creative side. And it's like, you just eliminated hundreds of jobs, hundreds. Like, you, with the budgets that you guys are working on, you're saying, I don't need a set designer. I don't need stunts. I don't need, the car operator, the stunt car operator. I don't need any of that. I need a sound guy. I need a lighting guy. I need a crew, a small crew, stripped down crew. But I'm getting rid of all that. I'm getting rid of hair, makeup, wardrobe. I'm getting rid of all that. But in the same breath, you're saying you're for the independent filmmaker and that AI is the danger. Like, you just cut your budget in half. And by the way, if your budget is being cut in half, why is your budget still $40 million? And the reason is because the corruption element has not been taken out of it. They've decreased their bottom line, but the producers that are here are still making the same amount of money, and guess what? More. And that's the element that we're like, get this the fuck out of here. And on the crew side, where this has gotten corrupted is on these big budget films, not to put any onus on crews ever. But you do get 12 to 15 guys sitting around going, yeah, I don't know. They're doing another setup. I'm just getting paid. No, I can't go now because I got the break. The guild says, yeah, talk to my rep. Yeah, that's fine. The union says this. I'm sitting here and I'm not doing anything. And it's those kinds of elements that allow for these bigger organizations to make money off of every production that's led to the destruction of the art form in LA. So fuck it all, man. Put the power back in the hands of creatives. And maybe we have a renaissance of like the 70s of great filmmaking. So yeah, that's kind of the...
So what do you see? Because I see what you're talking about is best case, the best use of AI creatively, which is what you're working on. And the worst case is exactly what you're saying, which is that the rot stays in there and they basically just reduce their costs and their income stays the same or increases, and they just churn out more and more shit. That seems the worst case scenario to me.
Both are going to play out simultaneously. That's the honest answer. The honest answer is both are going to play out simultaneously. I spoke to this, I won't say who, but I spoke to this amazing company in Brazil. It's just fantastic. The content these guys make, this studio is just out of control. And I spoke to them and I said, listen, if you don't get on these tools, these corporations are going to come in and they're going to wipe you off the face of the map because they're going to buy up all your stuff. And they've got the money, they've got the power, they've got the influence. You don't stand a chance in hell unless, and it is warfare, unless you arm the rebels, unless we can come in and the list of clients and productions that you have on your list, we can cut costs. And I don't mean removing people. Nolan A.I is all about, and people analyzing this will go, well, you're saying the same thing, asshole. And it's like, no, I'm not. You're moving the goalpost of collaboration. So what does that look like? Well, you said writers' rooms, for example. Great meeting with a massive company last week. And this one individual started talking about the magic of the writer's room and started talking about how wonderful it is and this magic and playing jazz and all these people with different ideas and different things. And I said, how did that work out on these 3 productions? Because these 3 productions sucked. And guess what? I've done the intel. I know the names of everybody that was in that writer's room. This woman is the daughter of this producer. This guy is dating the director. This person is, so there's all these force hires that are put in there that have zero experience, that it's all about nepotism and ego and sexual favors even. And you're throwing these people into a writer's room and they're just giving you garbage, and their opinion is now above somebody who's got 2 decades in the industry because of their association with the person who's holding the keys. So you have to take those notes. You have to say, I don't know, She-Hulk is going to twerk in the middle of this freaking thing with Megan Thee Stallion. I don't know. We're going to throw it in there. We're just going to see what happens because this person suggested it. And the human element, Nolan A.I, it doesn't matter, Nolan AI doesn't have a bad lunch or food poisoning. Nolan AI isn't going through a breakup. Nolan AI doesn't have a chemical dependency. Nolan AI isn't related to a producer or a financier that's going to give you biased information. It's just going, this is what I know about structure, and this is what you should take a look at, take it or leave it, on the writing side. And then on all the deliverable side, it's giving you, everything you need. But I told this guy about the writer's room. I said, let's demystify that. How successful has that really been? And he goes, yeah, okay. I said, so in your writer's room, if I could have 3 writers, the guys who created the show, or the film or whatever you're working on, and they're using Nolan to make sure that structure is on point. Well, now, you've decreased the writer's room, but you haven't eliminated the writer's room, nor have you eliminated the writer. And that's great. Then you avoid things like, and I love him. I think I've met him a couple times, but like, even in the best of people in Hollywood, ego takes over. A Quiet Place was written by these 2 brilliant writers who came up with the world, the idea, the script, and the script was fantastic. But over time, because of his association with the project, John Krasinski has now said, A Quiet Place, my world, my vision. From the imagination of John Krasinski comes this movie. And it's like, but you didn't write the script. Like you went through the script and did a polish. And these 2 guys spent years putting this script together. You don't even hear from them. They didn't get to work on the sequels. They were never invited back, and they're the source. It's that kind of shit, and then somebody else is taking credit for it. I've had to defend everything that I've written, even stuff that I've written and has been sold, stuff that's in development, because as soon as it starts rolling, some director or some producer is going to come in and go, oh, I did a polish on this scene, so I get story by. No, story by, that's the origin. Like, that's where it came from. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then we go to WGA arbitration and all that stuff. That's another feature. If I'm using Nolan and I get collaborators and they're all working on it, well, that's logged. Like all of that data of who came in and who did what, it's all logged. I don't have to submit multiple drafts via email to the fucking WGA. Like, what is this?
Right.
And we follow all the guidelines. We follow WGA's guidelines. We follow PGA's guidelines. We follow SAG guidelines because we're getting into some of that. But, the ability to go, oh, here's a button, submit to the WGA. And now you submit not only your work, but all the collaborators, and the WGA goes, click, 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 click. Okay, this is how credit's going to be assigned. And it's that. You're no longer waiting for 4 months to find out if you're even going to get credit on something that you spent 4 years writing. I've been through that, and That's fucking amazing. Sucks.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. That's amazing. So here's what I'm thinking, because we're kind of coming to the end of our time. I think what would be cool, I have a feeling from especially some of my creative writer people that listen to my podcast, there's probably going to be some questions.
Sure.
So I'm going to say that we should probably do some kind of like Instagram live, in a few weeks. Let people ask their questions, and you can sort of share what you understand and what you know based on your experience with Nolan. I think that would be a cool thing to do. Yeah. Yeah,
man. We also did on Nolan. It's like, I don't get paid for that, by the way. So we did a promotion where we said, if you sign up on Nolan for because the creator account is free, anybody can sign up and create, but it's limited because image generation costs the company money and things like that, so we can't just give it away. But a creator account is $40 a month, and that gives you access to pretty much all the bells and whistles. And then the pro account, which is more catered towards filmmakers that are like going at it and have multiple projects, that's $100 a month. But that even goes into small production companies. And then we have a studio suite. But what we did is we said, anybody who signs up for a pro account will get a free, one-on-one with Adam Simon to discuss whatever they want. If they want to talk notes, screenwriting, filmmaking, whatever, because, I teach as well. I've taught at a couple different film schools. But I didn't realize what the response was going to So I'm now slated for the next 3 months to just wake up in the morning to talk to people all day, which I'm down with. Yeah, but I'm open, man. Any questions or anything. But I think the fundamental difference is, the creatives have the power. And we're blogging and we're seeing these success stories. I have this 17-year-old girl that created a pitch package. She had no former knowledge of how to create a pitch deck. We just said, hey, take your story and create it. And she made it. And it's incredible. But education's also the other big line and move, because that needs to be changed. That's a gatekeeper in and of itself.
Any final thoughts on this whole AI maelstrom?
I just think that, if I'm talking to creatives and I just go, look, wouldn't you like, if you're starting with an idea, wouldn't you like a co-writer, a co-pilot? And I know this because writing, I lock myself in a room. You probably do the same thing. I disappear from friends and family, and there's that isolation aspect of writing. But wouldn't it be cool if you had a co-writer that isn't going to go, oh, it'd be cool. What if the character did this? It's just going, okay, I see where you're going. Let me put that into an organized fashion for you. That's industry standard of what it should look like. And then let me give you ideas based on your ideas, on your voice. It's the same principle with the voice cloning technology. You give 3 sentences and then it clones your voice, and over time it gets more and more like you. So the code of that is it picks up on inflections in your voice, whereby it can make determinations on your personality. It's the same thing. So it's focused on you. It's catered to you, which makes us different than anybody. So that's one. And then wouldn't you like, if you have an idea, rather than going out to a coverage company of a bunch of writers who are going to have their own biases, it's not objective. It's never objective unless it's a machine. And so you get that coverage back that smokes anybody else's coverage. And I've worked with consulting for human coverage companies. So you have that. And then you have the ability to create your own pitch decks, your own deliverables, your own one sheet, storyboard your whole film, create a schedule for your film, days in, days out, outlines, and ultimately budgets, and then move into sales and distribution. There you go. There's no reason, and you don't have to ask permission. And that's the thing. We're getting it away from that. That's what I would say to anybody who wants to use it. And if you're interested, sign up for free, use it, test it around.
Yeah, I'm going to put the information in the show notes about Nolan, and also information about how to find you and follow you and stay up to date with what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
And as always, thanks for your time, man. It's always valuable.
Dude, I love it. And what I love about you, and I do want to say this to your audience, after our last conversation, I went back and when I say argument, I don't mean that like I'm right, like at all. Like in fact, we had a conversation yesterday about budgeting where I found out I was wrong, like really wrong. Shockingly, terribly, horrifically wrong. But after our conversation, you brought some things to my mind that I was like, oh no, we're going down the wrong road. And we're still debating that. I won't say what that is, but we go in, and what I love about our team, Patrick Hibbler, who's an incredible producer, incredible human being, dear friend of mine, produced Man Down, Patrick Muldoon, Anna Cacciatore, Max Bricklin, who really, put his everything behind this. Dale is another guy. He's over at Universal, and he's been a wonderful asset. Just this really, Nas, shout out to Nas, who's looking at social media and stuff. This idea of like building a community, but we're constantly struggling against that VC model of like VC frenzy, go, like, and just doesn't matter, like go. And it's like, no. We have to talk about this. We have to make sure we're making the right decisions, because we end up being like everybody else. And we really want to be for the independent filmmaker and for the creative, where everybody else is just bullshitting.
You want to be there for the humans, not just
but
the
it was
machines.
you, dude. Like after that conversation, I went, holy shit. Like I didn't think of that. Specifically propaganda and certain ideologies, be they right, left, middle, whatever the fucking ideology is, to make sure that none of that creeps its way in. Like if I'm doing image generation and all I'm getting is a bunch of images of my hero that look like Channing Tatum, that's a fucking problem. You know, if I'm only getting Denzel Washington, that's a problem. Like I want to be able to say, who is it? Like what are the endless possibilities? And that's where creativity lives. So, and that came from you, man. Dude. That came from you. Yeah.
Thanks for saying that. I am always so excited to talk. I know we're going to have more conversations. In the meantime, I say to my audience, as I always do, stay curious.